Well, until we can get some form of enforcement, we're going to have to do some things like this. If we can get a form of enforcement, whether that be some legislation changes or the traffic wardens issuing tickets in the car parks, then we're sort of stymied. So if we can get a form of enforcement, whichever form it takes, we'd be quite happy to revert back to the original regulations.
But I thought that the corporation had implemented the enforcement gentleman in the vans. That's no longer?
Yes, correct. In 2014, the Chief Justice ruled that the 2007 ordinance was invalid. Um, the the Municipalities Amendment Act 2013 invalidated the parking ordinance 2013, and the Chief Justice also invalidated the 2014 parking resolution. So we had no form of enforcement from ourselves. During the time we were clamping, we had asked the traffic wardens to focus on the streets, and then we expanded the number of streets. So we've now made some requests to get the traffic wardens back in the car parks. We seem to be having a little difficulty working that out with the police force at the moment.
Now, how do you quantify that people were staying for the entire day if there has been a lack of enforcement?
Because our enforcement officers have been going around, and in fact we started putting stickies on people's cars and noting that they weren't paying and that they had stayed longer than the period of time that they were allowed, and keeping track of that. So we've got some empirical data which demonstrates that the majority of people in the car park are staying there all day.
Now, reading the blogs today, there's been some criticism levied with the corporation's decision. One resonating is that it will kill shopping in town. What do you say to critics who say that?
Nothing we've done has changed what's been happening for the last 6 months. The parking in City Hall and in Number One, which are designed to be short-term parking, has been filled with motorists who are parking all day, ignoring the regulations, ignoring the rules. So people coming in for short-term parking haven't been able to use those car parks for at least 4 months, I would say almost as long as 6 months. So that, unfortunately, we can't control, and it's still happening. All we're doing right now is affecting the only piece we actually control, and that is the collection of revenue. We would love tomorrow to have a form of enforcement. If we can have a level of enforcement, the short term will be back in play. I can assure you of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think is the detraction why people don't like to park at Bull's Head, which is $5, versus as of Monday, it'll be $15 in City Hall car park? Has, in your opinion, Bull's Head been utilized in the way that it was intended?
No, people don't use Bull's Head as often. In the heyday, when we had a lot more people in the island working, there was very little car space, but at least the short-term parking routinely turned over. And Bull's Head was relatively full every day. Since we had the downturn, since we had a lot of families leave, the parking has freed up. But since we've been unable to enforce, we've noticed that the unlawful parking has increased. People are finding it easier to park all day and not worry about enforcement rather than walk an extra 150 yards.